Welcome
This is an awesome podcast. This is one of my favorite ones.
to the Jeff
It's a lot of whiskey, Jeff.
Macolino
Jeff Macolino. Macolino.
podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Got a special one for you this week. It is a Swapcast. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly. I think Doug Stanhope actually coined the term. Love that guy. But it's part one of this podcast is with myself and Zeus Allen, who is one of the hosts of the Friends of Zeus podcast, which is the podcast I've made the most guest appearances on. I mean, if you don't count FL teams as anyways. I've been on the show a bunch. Good group of guys. Just Zeus, who the titular character, is that the correct term? I don't know. I need to look up words. I'm pretty drunk. There's been a long I don't know what to say. All right. Hey, how about we just dive into the episode? Now, part one of this episode is right here on the Jeff Macolino podcast, but to hear the thrilling conclusion, golly, what is going on here? Need to cut my hair. To hear part two, the thrilling conclusion of this episode, you have to go to the Friends of Zeus podcast. The links will be beneath me. If you're watching, I don't even know if I'm going to put this on YouTube because I feel like this is a demonetization waiting to happen. But anyways, the link to the Friends of Zeus podcast will be below, where you can listen to the conclusion, the second part of this episode. It's a fun idea, right? We're calling it a Swapcast, and no offense to Doug Stanhope if it's not exactly what he meant by it, but we're doing it. So part one here on the Jeff Macolino podcast, part two on the Friends of Zeus podcast. I'm very intoxicated right now. All right. Shall we rock and roll into the episode? All right, everybody. I'm very pleased to welcome my friend Zeus Allen to the Jeff Macolino podcast. I'm a friend of Zeus. How are you, Zeus?
I'm doing great. Thanks for mentioning you're a friend. Just to get out the shameless plugs right away. I'm part of a podcast we're now just calling FOZ, but it originally was Friends of Zeus podcast. We just feel like FOZ has a little bit more of a ring to it, and Friends of Zeus is kind of a mouthful. But yeah, I'm glad to be on again, Jeff. Is this the first time that I've been on your show?
This is the first time you have been on my show. I've been on your show how many times? At least like
Probably
6.
4 or 5 times. Yeah.
4 or 5. Okay.
Yeah. But have we, even the group, the gang hasn't been on your show yet, right?
No, none of you.
Oh, this is a sentinel moment.
You're penetrating the Macolino hymen. The podcast hymen. It's not that sensitive. It's been penetrated many, many times.
Been devastated.
I guess at that point, it's not a hymen. It's just a gaping hole.
It's a high was.
But I will mention up front, this is I should have looked up to confirm. I don't know if this is a Swapcast, but it's something like that. We're starting the podcast on the Jeff Macolino podcast. We're probably listening to this, although I will put this one up on YouTube, even though I realize I'm not looking at the camera at all. I'm looking at my microphone like an idiot. And we will finish this podcast on the Friends of Zeus podcast. The links are below. Make sure you follow them, subscribe to them on YouTube. First off, follow them on.
We're also on Spotify.
On Spotify. Make sure you follow them so you can catch the second half of this episode. But Zeus and I have spent hours and hours talking on podcasts before, on his podcast, not mine.
Mhm.
I your podcast was the one that I just completely passed out on because I was hammered drunk, correct? Yeah, that was
Yes.
you, right?
And I'm eating a burger during the show in memory of your eating your, what was it, the McDonald's surf and turf.
Yeah, no, actually, that's I'm glad you brought that up. I forgot about that. The Drunk Jeff Eats, which has kind of brought the majority of my YouTube subscribers onto my channel, was wholly created based on me going on the Friends of Zeus podcast for the first time. And I was there to talk about comedy. And
Yeah.
at the time, McDonald's had that Land, Air, and Sea burger, which was a Big Mac with a McChicken and a fillet of fish, all, all of them.
It's
So
just
I ordered this sandwich on Uber Eats and thought, this is going to be hilarious to just unwrap this monstrosity of a sandwich and just start eating it in front of these people who I've never met before. It's going to be
strangers. Yeah.
hilarious. I'm talking about comedy. This is going to be funny. I'm a prop comic like Carrot Top, apparently. In hindsight, it wasn't the best comedic bit, but it was a good safety. Like, at least this will be funny.
It's a little behind baseball because like I didn't catch on that you had actually passed out on the show.
Well, that was the next episode, though.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, so
And
that episode, but McDonald's delivered them all separately, and you had to make the sandwich yourself. And I'm like, that's disgusting. I'm not going to do that. That's disgust. I'm not putting my hands in all the secret sauce and mayonnaise and all that to make this sandwich. I thought it was going to be delivered, so I ate a McChicken, I think, on that one. But the next time I was on, I think it was an Alien episode,
yeah.
and God, I just I was fading. I was fading hard.
Mm-hmm.
And now, in fairness to me, I think what happened was I had to pee really badly. So I just closed my laptop and went pee. And when I came back, my laptop was closed. So I assumed, oh, I must have finished that. So
Then
I
you heard
woke
us.
I woke up. You had sent me a text message like, are you okay? And I had a bag of Taco Bell on my stomach, and I was like, oh shit, I don't think I finished that podcast.
Yeah, I don't think I've been legitimately hammered on this show. I Is it fair to say that we are a little bit of the genesis of the Dads and Drinks as well?
uh you guys have there's a uh a little bit. Yeah. There was so the Dads and Drink show I wanted to, and there's going to be a season 2, just to be clear, but I wanted to. So the Jeff Macolino podcast has become its own little monster, even though it controls my name.
Mm-hmm.
I still avoid generally like going too far past the line. Not that I have any lines. Like, there will be an
No, I
episode
understand
before this
you're
one comes out where I talk about a hooker having coke slip out of her vagina. So
yeah.
that was in Costa Rica, though, so it's not that out of bounds.
And it's legal there.
Right,
But yeah,
both
no,
things.
I get it because like we've had a couple offshoot episodes. Like I have another show that I really want to get running called The Nurses Are In, as in registered nurse are in. I think it's creative. Anyway,
Yeah.
we've mixed a few of those in with it. So you're kind of compartmentalizing.
Yeah.
I'll say this because they bust my balls about it anyway, but I'm not on my show right now, so I can say whatever the fuck I want. I generally refer to the fact that I'm a psych nurse, and so I talk about, a lot of my contribution to the show is like I'm like the touchy feely, look at both perspectives, assess, diagnose kind of guy. Like whether I agree with somebody or not, I try to see their perspective
Mm-hmm.
and give my input on it. But then I also am prone to fart jokes. So, um, I get what you're saying. You got this is in this alley, this is in that alley.
Right.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think this is going to be the way things are going in the future anyway. Like, I mean, Joe Rogan just doesn't do his podcast. He shows up on Theo Vaughn's. He shows up on all the people that are on his show's podcast just to get it out there. And then maybe, I mean, obviously the JRE Prime
Right.
is fantastic. It's I'll say it all day long. I wish you would come on just because I said I like this show, but like it's my favorite podcast by far. He has a great product. He gets super intelligent guests on there. And I don't watch every one. Like anything with MMA, I'm like, all right, I'm punching out Magnum.
Yeah.
Just,
But even you follow him on Spotify, he's got specifically labeled MMA episodes.
mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I'm going is I've got the Jeff Macolino podcast, which is the most successful thing that I got going. I've got the Dads and Drink show. I've got Drunk Jeff Eats, which on YouTube is the most successful thing I've got going. I'm starting something else that by the time this episode airs, it's a Cuban sandwich review.
Yeah.
I'm reviewing and finding the best Cuban sandwich, and I live in the mecca of Cuban sandwiches. So,
St. Pete, Florida, right?
yeah. Well, Tampa's the mecca, and St. Pete's right across the bridge. So yeah. So I am going to be eating so many Cubans, and I'm in a weight loss competition right now, so that's not going to go well. But and also, by the way, my acting career is still like the tip of the pyramid. Like that's my main thing. So,
but honestly, if you get a big role, like, and it's not even a big if. I mean, you bucket list wise, you've done what I want to do 6 times over. I would love to be in a movie, play the fucking bald villain, you're fucking Nazi, whatever. I just want to be. I want to be on film and be like that much ingrained into like the zeitgeist. But yeah, so and how old are you? You're like what, 27, 28?
No, 37. Just turned 37 a couple weeks ago.
There's still so much time. I mean, what, Morgan Freeman didn't start his career, like didn't blow up until he did
50
Smart with Christopher Reeves, and he was just like all over the place. But I mean, you got a lot of time and you're already in there. I think it's a numbers game, man. The more roles you go for, the more chances you get to have one. I just haven't gone for any roles, but as you were saying, maybe I get on IMDb and somebody sees my name, and my name is unique, mainly because of the Allen part. I'm sure there's another Zeus out there, but that being said, I go by Highlander rules. If I ever meet a Zeus, I have to cut off their head because there can be only one. But go ahead.
I'll edit this out if you don't want that. Is Zeus actually your legal name?
Yeah, that's my real name.
I think I've asked you that on the phone before.
Yeah,
but so I think I knew the answer to that question. I mean, you can't get a better name than that.
Wait, you want to know what my middle name is? This will fucking rock.
Hercules.
Poseidon.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Who would lie about something like that?
Well, I mean,
I guess a lot of people, yeah.
I'm tempted.
But you don't, but it's like boom, boom, poof. My last name just fucking, like if I ever was to get into Hollywood or whatever, I'd probably just go by Zeus Poseidon and let people try and figure out what was going on there. That might actually be a move.
It's not the worst. I don't think there's. Luckily for you, if you're going into SAG, I don't think there's a lot of Zeuses. So I'm fairly certain your name is clear. Like Zeus Allen would be clear, but Zeus Poseidon would almost certainly be clear. And if
Yeah,
it's not, you don't want to associate yourself with someone else who took it.
exactly. So yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up. Have you seen this recently, the Dave Chappelle Jim Carrey story?
No, I don't think so.
It's so great. I'll give the rundown, but it's Dave Chappelle, so I know people will go and listen to him say it funny. But he basically talks about Norm Macdonald calls him up, like they were close, and he's like, Norm's like, yeah, you wanna meet Jim Carrey? And Chappelle's like, fuck yeah, right? So he gets to the set and he's like, hey, Jim Carrey. But the movie that he was going to meet him on was Man in the Moon, and Jim Carrey went full on
Oh, Andy Kaufman.
method. He went on full on method. He was Andy Kaufman no matter what. And like, this is so great because my heart is in this politically. He's like, so I had to call that, and he kept calling him the N-word, but I had to call that fool. We'll just say fool. Andy the entire day. And he's like, even though I can look at him and it's Jim Carrey, it's clearly Jim Carrey. I know what Jim Carrey looks like. And he's like, that's what trans people make me feel like. It's a man, and he's getting ripped for it. But I'm fine with Fran. Yeah. He's getting ripped for it because this is probably his second slam on trans, and I don't think he has a problem with trans people. I think he has a problem with, you have to call me this or you're a piece of garbage. That's the part.
That's the problem. That's the problem.
That's what I have a problem with.
Well, and the other problem is, don't push it on other people. Like,
exactly. I mean, listen, in my field, I run across trans people all the time. I call them by their pronouns,
right.
And
you're a psych nurse. Of course you do. It's a mental problem.
Well,
I mean, I not to be that guy, but it is.
Oh, let's not call it a mental problem, but let's say that it is in the DSM,
A mental
which
affliction. The same way I deal with depression.
Right.
I'm not stigmatizing it. I'm just.
No. I understand what you're saying, and I don't think what you're saying is wrong. I just, in this world where we're supposed to watch our words, that's one of the things. It's like, it's in the DSM, which is like this diagnostic book of every mental issue that you have. It could be neurosis, it could be narcissism, it could be bipolar, gender dysphoria, which is somebody identifying as a gender other than the one that they are, is in the DSM, which means that it is a complication with the mind. We'll call it that. It doesn't necessarily make it bad. It doesn't make it good. I mean, every elected official we've ever had are the biggest narcissists there will ever be.
Me too, probably.
You know what? Narcissism is like becoming like the common thing. Like, everybody just wants to be heard. I personally, outside of this show, I just want to chill, be quiet, leave me alone, let me play some Xbox, let me just be, just not think. Like the one thing, like I wrote a lot of papers in school, and I went to a Christian university for my bachelor's in nursing, and every paper I wrote was on legalizing weed. I haven't smoked weed in 20 years, but if it was legal, man, that'd be so great, because the one thing I always liked about weed is the not thinking about anything, like just you're just being, you're laughing at stupid shit, you're just chill, and we don't have that in the world right now. It's like hardcore drinking, heroin, fentanyl. It's like all these things that can fucking kill you if you get the wrong amount of it. Weed, Has never been that problem. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent for it, which I do talk about all the time at work because I don't have it in my system. And I'm kind of dying for somebody to go, we need to drug test you. I'll be like, all right, let me call my lawyers. But yeah, let's do that because you just picked the wrong guy.
When I quit my 8 to 5 job, my boss was like, "Can we get you to hang on as a temp for a few more weeks? Like we'll pay you like $80 an hour and you could work 4 hours a day." And I'm like, "Well, that actually seems like a good deal. Sure. They're like, give me some money. It's like a bridge loan into the future. I'll do that for a few weeks." He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you got to go to this temp agency. You got to pass a drug test and you'll be all set." And I'm like, there's a problem. He's like, what's I'm like, I'm not gonna pass a drug test. He's like, why not? I'm like, well, I was hammered and I was at this concert in Tampa and I was doing some coke and some guy invited me to his SUV in the parking lot and we smoked a bunch of weed. So I mean,
Probably not gonna pass.
I'm not gonna pass for weed. I'll pass for coke. It's been 48 hours.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, but no, but so going back, I will say that here's the one thing is, so I've dealt with depression and almost killed myself a couple times in my life. Um,
Quitter.
right, but I'm not an alcoholic because I don't quit. But but
Okay.
so here's my thing, and even with my boozing habit, I know it's not healthy, but I don't push it on other people. I don't push depression on I don't tell children you should drink a ton of whiskey and want to slit your wrist in a bathtub.
Right.
Why do trans people feel the need to say no? You need to give puberty blockers to your kids if they no that is where it's gone from a mental issue to being an aggressive action to violently harm other individuals.
At that point, it becomes a social contagion. And here is my point. This is becoming way more of a serious episode than I thought it would be, but here is my
We'll
issue
get to
with
jokes.
two things. First of all, you hear so often that my genitalia do not define me, yet I have to cut off my genitalia to accentuate how I'm defined.
Yeah.
And the irony of that, I don't understand how people don't catch on to the fact that they are, as far as the term counterintuitive is or goes, that is the epitome of counterintuitive thought process. This doesn't make me. I'm gonna cut it off so I can be me. Done. What the fuck? So that one bothers me. And the other thing is they've attached themselves to LGB.
I'm glad you brought that up.
I love one of my oldest friends. I haven't talked to him in a long time. He's like super gay, like 110% gay. Like gay guys go, look at that guy. He's a little gay. You know what I mean? But
they call him the F word, but they're allowed to. It's
right. Us two white guys that aren't able to say anything about anybody without it being offensive. And that's fine. I don't want to offend people. So if that's what it takes to not offend people, I'm fine. Calling somebody by what they want to, I out in public, I might be a little more resistant to doing it, but in my line of work, I completely accept it and I understand. But here's the one point to what you were saying. All the trans people that I've ever met are on a behavioral health unit. Enough said. There's comorbidities. It means that like they're that and depressed. They're that and bipolar. They're that and toxic.
They're using it as a way to try to explain another mental condition is what I generally think. But I also think the alliance with the LGB community, I'm cutting it off there with the lesbian, gay, and bisexuals. is that the argument with them, which I fully agree with 110%. I'm friends with gay people and I do not have any dispute with any of them. They were born that way. It wasn't a choice. They were born that way. They're arguing they're born that way, and literally the opposite argument to that is transgender people who are saying, I was born wrong. So how are you out? You should be the one. The straight people should be in the middle, like, stop fighting each other.
Well, and if you get into certain algorithms like on TikTok or I don't do TikTok, I find it just annoying. But I do Instagram Reels. I'm a big fan of Instagram. Instagram, their algorithm is good. They find the stuff that I think's funny, the stuff that I think's poignant. But there's a lot of people in the homosexual community that are going, look, that ain't us. And again, I don't want to vilify trans people. I have known trans people, and they're fine. It's this fad that has evolved, that has come from this. And more importantly, I think that the big upswing in this, and I love my social media, don't get me wrong, but it's a double-edged sword. You know, it helps me to promote my show, and hopefully one day we'll be big and we can do stuff with it. But it also, you know, let's say there's a kid and they're confused, which many people have been confused. There's a period in your life where you have this like gender limbo. You have a best friend that's a guy, and you have amorous feelings towards them.
I've never been there, to be clear, but I understand most people have.
Nor have I.
I understand most people have.
Nor have I. I probably had one friend that I was like, I wasn't amorous, but I was like, that's the coolest guy, blah, 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 like idolized. And idolizing is kind of the same thing, you know?
Oh, so me and Drew Brees, maybe.
What's that?
Me and Drew Brees, maybe.
Right.
Not vice versa, just me towards.
But yeah, but the point being is that idolizing can very quickly turn to amorous, you know, more than how it should be kind of feelings.
Yep.
But so a lot of people go through that, like that weird, what am I, you know, zone. And then they go online and they're like, I'm confused. I have this buddy and he's like so cool, and I wish he would be more my friend. And then on the other end of that chat blog or whatever, they're like, well, clearly you are a man trapped in a woman trapped in a man's body, man trapped in a woman's body, whatever, and guide them down a path that they may not have organically gone down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where the double-edged part of the thing comes is there's this multitude of influences that are out there now, and if you ask a question that clicks, you know, hits their dopamine, they're like diving in. Oh, you clearly you just really want to suck a dick. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And again, gay, straight, bisexual, even the Q. I don't mind the Q. Q is just like that guy that wears boy shorts, you know, or you know,
I thought he was a villain in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Well, I think it actually means queer. But good Star Trek reference. But the point is that it's all fine, and you know, if you want to cut things off and all that, I think there has to be an age. You can own a gun, you can buy alcohol, and actually, even then, if they were to broadly paint broad strokes, drinking at 25, firearms 25, because that's when your brain is generally when the brain is fully developed. And if you want to cut off your penis or your breast at 25, you know.
So very interesting with that, and you could probably talk to this a little bit, being in the health field.
Yeah.
When I was 28 or 29,
Mhm.
I was talking to some of my friends. I just recently gotten divorced, and I said, I want to get a vasectomy so I can fuck all the strange I want and not worry about having more kids. And one of the dudes said, no, you can't get a vasectomy under 35. No respectable doctor will do it because they'll say you might change your mind, and reversing it's more risky than you think. Just you gotta wait. We'll give you something or whatever to help maybe lower your chances, but we're not going to operate on someone who now. And he said, who has no kids. I got 2 kids. He's like, well, then maybe you could get a doctor to do it. He's like, but if you have no kids, they're not going to do it until you're older, because reversing it.
Worried about malpractice, things like that.
Well, it's an uh unnecessary medical procedure.
Yeah.
And then they have to do another unnecessary medical procedure to fix you if you decide 3 years later, when you're 33 years old, that you want to have children with your 27-year-old wife. So but that used to be a thing. Now they're like, we're going to give you puberty blockers, which, by the way, are not reversible. They're not.
They're also not blockers. What they are,
They're stoppers, right?
Well,
I mean,
actually, what they are is they are the same drug that is used to chemically castrate pedophiles.
there you go.
The key word there, castrate.
Mm-hmm. So
And as you
you're
said, irreversible.
yeah. So 13 to 17-year-old children are being chemically castrated.
Essentially. And to add to that, shit, I had a line that I was going with. Well,
Remember, this is going to be a funny episode too.
pause. If you want to edit, this is the time. So yeah, anyway, just I'm at a loss. But yeah, chemical castration is irreversible. The drugs that they use are for, you know what? I figured out what I was going to talk about. There was a time when you wanted to have a gender change surgery that you had to have a psych evaluation. I don't know if that's been removed, but I can only think that it has to have been removed because children are having gender transition surgery, and I just don't think that they could ever pass a psych assessment that said they can remove that they felt satisfied that this child was of sound mind and could make the decision to remove their genitalia. So that's basically what I was getting at, is that how are they not having psych assessments with this?
Well, so I guess here's the I just realized I don't have my light on to make. There we go.
Mhm.
I guess my last thing with this is, if I went to a doctor tomorrow, and I've been a staunch heterosexual since I was 5 years old, and I saw my lifeguard that was giving me swimming lessons, and I said, I like her. Her name was Kelly. I don't know why. I still remember that. I don't remember anything in my life, but I remember that. But if I went to a doctor today and I said, I need my dick cut off, give me chemicals, I'm a woman.
Yeah.
If any doctor had any brains, and by the way, I've got hundreds of hours of me talking on the internets, they would say, well, no, this guy clearly is having some sort of alcoholic or mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And we need to
Intervene.
help him. Yeah, we intervene medically. This guy is as off as shit. But I feel like, because of current trends, that they've kind of been like, yeah, oh, okay, yeah, whatever they say, whatever they. I mean, look, what's her face? His face.
Who you're gonna bring up? I know
the
already.
one from Inception.
Oh my God,
I can't remember.
such a talented actress.
Well, she had an article and she said, I slipped and fell and banged my head, and I started hearing voices, and that's when I knew I needed to turn into a man. And I'm like, what? No, that's a brain injury. That's not
You know what? Even more to that, I don't have a
Elliot
problem-
Page, whatever.
Ellen Page.
Ellen Page turned to Elliot Page.
Elliot
Yes,
Page.
there you go. There you go.
I don't have a problem with them transitioning. Fine. It's a shame, you know.
But she clearly had a brain injury. Like, and they just let her do it.
But more importantly, is she is publicizing it, showing herself with no
Completely
breast, a
fake,
six-pack,
gross.
looking like a guy. That's the part that bothers me, because there at the time that it happened, she was like a what's the role? A role model to young women, young lesbian women, because she came out as a lesbian first,
Right.
and then decided that she wanted to be a man. That's the part
After
that
she suffered a brain injury.
right. That, you know, perhaps. But the point being is that it's irresponsible. Charles Barkley said it best in this old commercial from like back in the 80s. He's like, I am not a role model. Don't do what I do.
Yeah.
Don't take me. Oh, you remember the commercial? It was great. As much as you want to say bad about Charles Barkley, that was a super responsible thing to say. Is like, look, I can be an asshole. I'm not a role model. You want to play basketball? Come talk to me.
I'm a basketball player. Yeah.
But don't do the things I do. Didn't he get like caught with a hooker or something? Wasn't that one of his stories? I'm pretty sure. Every basketball
He
player.
had gambling issues, and
Yeah.
and I probably a hooker too.
Yeah, and that's where I have problems with her, because she's not even in. They are not. See, I'm correcting myself.
Whatever.
I hate correcting myself, but I do it sometimes. They are they're not even an actor anymore. They are just a public figure and a promoter of something that should be reserved for adults. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you
Let's bring back the funny.
this. So hey,
Yeah.
before we swap podcasts, I mentioned to you, and you had said to me, and I know you're not here yet, but you had started researching about doing stand-up, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I said to you, I want to pull out an old notebook, and I don't have it open to a page where I have funny stuff, but I had the comedy Bible by Judy Carter, and like I have this whole
That's the
chart.
book I got.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have this whole chart here. So
Mhm.
so I figured, and something I've done in very early episodes of my podcast, and now I'm saying I want to do it again, but I don't want to host it. I don't want the responsibility and the time constraints, but
Mhm.
is just going inside the notebook. So I'm going to literally, I have not read this. I just turned the pages because I had some podcast notes in there.
Mhm.
But this was my matrix. Oop, where'd it go? There it is. This was my little matrix that I drew. And so I'm just going to read the first page of notes I have. I don't know where this is. I've not read these until now.
You will try and make them funny.
Let's see if we can make jokes. The first thing I have is God damn it. It's AIM cyber sex. You're a little older than me, so this was AOL Instant Messenger. And back when I was in middle school, one of the cool things to do was to have cyber sex. and I did write next to this, hoping this intent doesn't crap out. Hope my mom doesn't walk in. Um, so I think the intent of this was you typing and jerking off on a keyboard as a middle schooler to a chick describing sex with each other. And my mom is in like the room next door, but luckily for me, she was bedridden at the time with a I'm kidding, of course, but but there was
not
that. And then there was the fact that as an adult now, I realized I was probably just describing me masturbating to an old man.
No, so I'm gonna go a step further than that. And this was always funny to me, is like there was this period when like 486 was a beast computer. Yeah, I got a 486 and I got 4 gig hard drive. And I got standard modem, like how it even got anything, I don't know. It was running through a phone line. And you'd be like talking to a girl, and you'd be like, send me a picture of you. And then
just slowly.
yeah, you're like by the time the picture gets there and you're ready to spank one out,
you've already jizzed
the next morning. And also there's something to be said for the binary way that you have to go into this whole thing. It's like you got to type. Hopefully they say something that's by today's standards fucking benign, like so non-impactful. Like if somebody were to say, yeah, I was touching my pussy or something like that, you're like, all right, whatever. I can type in touching my pussy on my Google.
Yeah, it'll only take me 3 minutes to get a picture of it to load.
And I don't have to accommodate to you. I can see 50,000 examples. Some pixelated, some not pixelated. Some have a penis, some don't. You know,
you were all in when you clicked on a picture. I remember clicking on a picture of Carmel Electra and like she posed nude, and it was just like just bit by bit by bit, and I'm like, come on, the boobs are gonna be here soon. The boobs are gonna be here soon.
Yeah.
I think I probably came before they did.
Oh my God, you came before the picture ever got to you. It was
the anticipation was sexy. I mean, especially when you're 12.
Right. And now, I mean, God, I hope, but I'm not a fool. I'm not foolish enough to think that my 14-year-old has not been just burying himself in porn on his iPad. You know what? It's one of those things. I just smile and back away slowly, and accept the fact that when he goes into the shower and it takes him 45 minutes, I don't want to walk in.
Nope. Just
you know what I mean?
Pay the extra water bill and don't ask questions. Now, I'm not going to talk on the podcast. I'll talk to you afterwards about my 13-year-old daughter. But there are tinges. I realize there are tinges of sexism in the way I parent. So I'll admit to that. Like I'm like, well, that's harmless, but I'm like, how dare she? How dare she even joke about this? That's on me. I need to work on myself.
How old is she?
13.
Wow. Yeah. You're about 3 years away from a shotgun murder of a 16-year-old boy.
Yeah,
maybe
well,
2.
All I'll say is this, as a PSA to parent, including yourself, parents, make sure your kids don't have Discord. It's not good. It's not good.
No.
They know they can hide their shit on Discord.
I think there's another one called Telegraph that's supposed to be pretty bad.
Yep.
But it's where all the predators go. Give me some more. That was a nice little venture down memory lane.
See, the Notebook's good.
It's kind of what's kind of funny is like I'll often reminisce about like how kids are now today versus us. Like we would, you're close enough to my age. You're probably the like late Gen X. You're definitely a Gen X
No, I'm
personality.
millennial.
Okay, but you carry you're Gen X by assimilation. You've had far more Gen X qualities to you than millennials. And
I've always been an old soul,
that's a
but a
complete
very
compliment.
immature
I
one,
think
but an old
millennials
soul.
are assholes. But
No,
I think
millennials, by the way, are like 30 to 45 right now. Like,
Jesus. Well, but here's my point. When I was a kid, Saturday morning, maybe you watched some cartoons, but definitely after the cartoons, you were out.
out
And
and
you didn't
playing,
come
yeah.
back except for lunch. And then you eat fast and you got to get back out because you're playing dodgeball, which that's even fucking outlawed now. That I think the loss of dodgeball is the death of society. But we can get into that further. But then you come back when the lights were coming up, when it was getting dark outside.
Yeah, when the street lights came on, you had to go home.
And usually you were out another hour or you were over at a friend's house.
Yeah, usually your mom had to come out and scream. Yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing is all those same things that they worry about now were there then. We just survived. Like maybe to a degree, I don't want kids dying or anything, but maybe letting your kids go out and come back after dark is kind of a natural selection thing. They got to know to run when something seems threatening. They got to know.
I wonder if their access to really, really bad shit compared to what
They might be more prepared. Who knows?
Well, that's a good point. They might be. We just might be extra protective, right?
Well, yeah, there is the discussion about perspective. Like maybe we are just our parents, except we're not saying these kids with their long hair and their rock and roll. We're saying these kids with their faces in their phones and their belligerent attitude.
Yeah, if my parents knew what I was doing in middle school, they would have been so ashamed and embarrassed and disgusted of me. But
oh my God, my parents would have sent me to reform school. Do you even know what you might know what reform school is? But I'll bet you any younger people listening just don't remember the reform school threats. That was like the school for the bad kids, and we're going to send you to reform school or military academy.
yeah, they've got a version of that now. Like kids who get expelled from super violent public schools go to the juvie school is what they call it now.
Yeah,
at least, and my daughter's school, that's what they call it.
And I think it's just a perspective thing. Maybe the things aren't as bad with our kids as we thought. But if I have to hear another young person tell me how they're pro-Palestine when what they really are is pro-Hamas, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
Oh well,
like,
yeah.
We need a good culling. We need to weed out a lot of people.
I think the one thing that was so respectable when I was a youth, when I was even 21 years old, the thing that was most respectable is if I spoke up, every adult in the room, and I was an adult at 21, sure, but every 30 plus year old in the room would say, "Shut the fuck up, you dumbass kid." Nowadays, these fucking 16-year-olds are taking on TikTok and Twitter and whatever else, and they're, oh, we need to do this. But it's like, shut the fuck up, you stupid ass. Just
until people can clean your underwear and there's no skid marks, shut your fucking mouth.
I would rather someone who shits their pants than someone like I don't know his name. That stupid. I'm not going to say bad words. I'm going to move on. I'm about
describe them. Are you talking about Dylan Mulvaney?
No, yeah, I know. I'm talking about that idiot from the Parkland shooting whose dad was in the FBI and he was at home on the day of the shooting.
Adam Lanza.
No, I don't think that's it.
And it was Hernandez. It was Adam Lanza.
It was a white boy. It was a little
Yeah,
white boy.
actually,
The
he
skinniest
was
white boy
Hispanic.
I've ever seen. He's a fucking communist.
Yeah, the one that they showed him in the interrogation room, and he's looking up the camera and acting different after they leave and all that. Yeah, I want to say his name was Hernandez. I know who you're talking about, and he acted like he was schizophrenic. Oh, the demons told me to do it, and then
Oh
they
no,
just
no, no,
found.
not the guy who did the shooting. One of the victims of the shooting who was actually at home pretending he was being shot at.
Oh God, fuck.
I
Yeah.
can't remember. He's not worth it. He can't write. He can't spell. He's fucking functionally retarded. But
How
people
about this? How
hang
about
on his
this?
every word.
Here's the thing that also is bothersome. Everybody, these kids today, how many times do you hear about a kid getting arrested anymore for something stupid, like whatever, shoplifting a candy bar,
Police aren't
whatever.
arresting anymore.
Yeah, because they're worried about who they're going to offend. Like myself, I've been arrested a couple times, all alcohol related. I'm sure you've got an alcohol drinking story or an arrested story that you could
I think this is a great time to talk about this. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. I'm not going to talk about what led to the events. I'm going to talk about when I was arrested. And by the way, it was a nolo proseque or whatever. They didn't prosecute. Um, I was in. I went to a holding cell in Tampa after I got arrested, and one thing was very obvious early on, and that was that I was the only white guy in the cell, and well, there was one other guy. He had long hair and a white wife beater.
of
And
course.
I was looking around. By the way, there was also a trans prostitute who kept going in between male and female. They didn't know what to do. This was many years ago. They didn't know what to do. So it was definitely his dick and his Adam's apple. It was definitely a born male, but he kept going back and forth between male and female holding. But it was a confusing time. This was like 2014, I want to say. Maybe 15. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So, anyways, I'm sitting there in the holding cell, and these guys are getting 14 or so of us, and me and this one white guy who's making eyes at me like, and I'm like, I don't think he's looking at me the right way. Like, I feel like he's trying to be like building a white alliance. And I'm like, no, that's not for me. So, anyways, so while I was basically about to shit my pants, you know what? Let's say this. We're going to transition to the Friends of Zeus podcast.
Ah.
So, make sure that you go to the show notes below and you go to the Friends of Zeus YouTube page or the Spotify link. They'll both be there. And
Just
you
look
click
us
on
up.
that, and you will get part 2 of this story and this conversation of me being arrested with a white supremacist and a bunch of black people and a trainee who kept going back and forth. You can
This is
catch the conclusion of the
intriguing.
story on the Friends of Zeus podcast. Make sure you
Intriguing.
subscribe there. Part 2 will be out at some indeterminate date because, we'll just follow us all on the socials. Just click the damn link and you'll get the second half of the story. So, all right. So normally
Maybe I'll come up with a little jail story of my own.
There we go. So
I've got a couple.
we're gonna wrap it here because
We're going over to Zeus.
Well, yeah, go over to the Friends of Zeus podcast, and I'm not going to even leave this episode. I normally do a pre-recorded outro to the episode. I'm not going to do this here unless there's something special to promote, which, if you haven't watched Women Want Everything yet, go do that. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and all the socials, but hop on over to the Friends of Zeus. You'll get the rest. Zeus, you're going to take over after I pee and refill my drink, and then I'll tell you about the rest of my night in jail.
I can't wait.
Boom.
All right.
It's over.